Welcome to Where Her Heart Speaks, a show designed to challenge and disrupt ineffective thoughts and behaviors to help you not only embody peace, joy, calm, and certainty, but also to help you live the life you've always dreamed of living. Where Her Heart Speaks with Coach Catherine begins now.
Hi there, it's Coach Catherine. Do you struggle to stay in touch with your true authentic self, or are you often overwhelmed with trauma responses? It's time to face the facts. Listen, the fight or flight response is real, and it has a huge impact on your life. And this is why I've created an easy assessment to help you understand the state of your nervous system. You want to know, is it keeping you safe? Is it keeping you stuck? Or is it allowing you to be your authentic self and thrive? If you're interested in learning more about your nervous system and how to experience more peace and calm in your life, I want to encourage you not to wait any longer and go visit my website at www.catherinejames.com. Take the assessment that's right there on the front page. I'm going to say you owe it to yourself to find out the truth. Welcome and welcome back. I am Catherine James, international speaker, best-selling author, trauma-informed coach, and your host for this show, Where Her Heart Speaks. And listen, you're going to hear me say it again and again and again and again. I get to hang out with some amazing women, and this week my guest is nothing shy of that. I want to welcome Dr. Tonya Cole into the space of Where Her Heart Speaks. Dr. Tonya, before I start asking you questions and get all off on a tangent, I am going to have you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Catherine. I am so excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation. But yes, I am Dr. Tonya Cole, but I go by Dr. Tonya, and I am your Bounce Back Better coach. I have had an entire career in oncology, and I am passionate about helping cancer survivors recover their physical and their emotional health after cancer. You know, I have, how much do you want me to say about myself? So, I could go on.
I want to say I love the Bounce Back Better coach. And when we hear Bounce Back Better, we think about all of the people who talk about just bouncing back. But you've done something different in that you put better on the end of that. So just quickly, and hopefully I'm not going to throw it off or throw you off, but why put better? I mean, we think bounce back is good enough, but why bounce back better?
When I think about bounce back better, I think about a ball. That's the easiest thing to compare it to is when you bounce a ball, and the harder you bounce a ball down, the higher the recoil. So every time you bounce, when you bounce back, you're going to bounce back a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. And the harder you bounce, the higher you bounce back. Mm-hmm. So I always like to think about, as a cancer survivor, we're getting hit hard. We are bouncing down hard. So when we recoil, when we come back, we're coming back better. We're going to rise above the level that we started at when we were diagnosed with cancer. We're coming back better. And I'm here to show women, actually not just women, but show cancer survivors how to get past that point where they started so that they can actually live a better life after cancer than before.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is so beautiful. A better life after cancer. Right? That's something you don't really even think about when you are in the media and seeing individuals who have struggled or are struggling with cancer. So I just wanted to repeat that, to really plant that in individuals' souls, the possibility of a better life after cancer. Now, you are an oncologist who experienced cancer yourself. And I know that it was not just a one-time thing, but several times or two times. But tell us a little bit about your journey and how you were able to navigate and come to this place of knowing that you could bounce back better.
Yeah, I only had cancer once.
Okay.
But I had some other health crisis
Okay.
prior to cancer, because I actually had a stroke before I had cancer.
Okay.
And I like to think now, looking back, because you understand life backwards.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what's happening when you're going forward, but you understand it backwards.
Mm-hmm.
That every time you have a health crisis, it is your body sending you a message that something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally ignored the message multiple times. But when I had cancer, that was the first time that I actually came to the realization that my life was not going to go forever. Like, there is an end here, and it could happen sooner than you realize. And that's when I, embarked on a journey to really try to leave a legacy. And that initial journey morphed into something much bigger, where I actually, did a whole lot of self-evaluation, uncovered a lot of truths about myself, things that were keeping me stuck. And I've evolved over the last 8 years now to a point where my health is better, but also my mindset is better. Like, I think differently now. Like, I make decisions much differently now, and my responses to things are much different now than they were before. And I realize that when you're bouncing back, it's not just about getting your health better, it's actually getting your mind and your spirit, man, better. Because when all three are better, that's when you bounce back better. Because when you bounce back, that's just getting your health back. But when you want to be better, you got to add those other two layers on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. And I'm not sure why I thought you had cancer more than once. So thank you for clarifying that. Maybe I was hearing about something you were working on.
Yeah. So after the stroke, I had a stroke when I was 37.
Uh-huh.
I had cancer when I was 47. So 10 years later, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. At that time, I'm a radiation oncologist by training. I've been doing that now for about 26 years. And I guess in about my 15th year of practice, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that completely changed the way I practice medicine. When you're actually the one sitting in the chair and you're seeing it from the other side, that completely changed because I was practicing initially just as a clinician. It was very dry. I was very cold. It was about the business. And being in that chair, put a level of empathy in me that I didn't have before. So it really created a way for me to connect with patients that I hadn't ever had. And it totally changed my practice. Now I have patients that I can honestly tell when the change happened, because the patients that I started treating after I was diagnosed, I can't get rid of. Like, they're 5-10 years out and they're like, no, I'm coming back next year. But those ones prior, when they were done, they were done. And now I see how much of a difference that makes when you're able to make that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting as you're talking. I'm just thinking about, I sit in this space of trauma, but how individuals co-regulate and they need other people. And being in a space with a physician who you're really unable to co-regulate with, there's no desire to come back because there was no connection physiologically or intellectually, right? It's just, oh, this person's just taking care of me while I'm on this process. And then when the process is done, like, yeah, I'm done with them. It sounds like the individuals that you were able to co-regulate with, have that real connection, are the ones that are like, oh, we love Dr. Tonya and we are coming back. We're going to make sure we're cancer free every year.
And and a lot of times it's just a social visit. They bring the pictures of the kids, the grandkids. They want to know how my kids are because a lot of them have been around since my kids were born.
Yeah.
So it warms my heart to know that I changed in that way from what I used to be.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's just a moment right there of education, or for education, for individuals to be mindful of the relationship that they have with their physicians. It makes a big difference. And I would even venture to say that it makes a difference in our healing process. You said something that the better part of it is including the spirit man and including the mindset. And I know that my dad, as you know, has cancer, and he has just not stopped. Without having this diagnosis, he would never, you or anyone else would even ever know that he has cancer. And he equates it to just what you said, his spirituality and his mindset. So the cancer is still there, but he has continued to live his life and not missed a beat. So when you talk about just bouncing back, being from a health perspective, and it kind of stops there. But when we want to be better, we get to add our spirituality and we get to add our mindset. What I know is that in your working with individuals from a coaching perspective, those are areas that you focus on. So tell individuals who may be listening and recovering from cancer, what does that look like if they were saying, well, I want to know a little more about how to add my spirituality or how to improve my mindset so that I can reach that better place without giving away any information about your programs yet.
I think it's important when you're bouncing back, you have to have a different mindset and you have to, it's about really coming to an awareness where you are. Because I think a lot of times we don't even know where we are. And sometimes you need assistance in someone helping you to find where you are, because that's where I was. I didn't know I wasn't connecting with people. I didn't know that when I walked into the room, I didn't look people in the eye, that I didn't, put my hand on their shoulder to put them at ease. Like those little things, those are cues. Sometimes it takes somebody from the outside looking in to show you those things about you or give you tools so that you can uncover those things for yourself, because it's little increments. And I've been on this journey now for 8 years, and it's all of this doesn't happen overnight, but little by little you start to uncover things about you, and then you can start to change some things in your life. Then you find out some things that you may have some unforgiveness in your heart, some things that are just that just have you bound, and it's about finding out those things and developing strategies to work through them. And I think so many people go through their entire life not ever realizing why the same cycle of events keeps happening over and over and over again.
Yeah. And they almost just kind of take them as normal. Like this is just life for me. Mm-hmm. And not step into a mindset of saying, I'm going to do something different.
Because if you don't do something different, it's the mindset, it's the behavior that got your health to the point where you got sick. Yeah. So healing your body, but not changing your mind, just puts you right back on that Ferris wheel to get sick again, which is why a lot of times you see people, which I've seen people, because I've been doing this now long enough, where I've seen people get healed of their cancer, come back with either a recurrence, come back with a second cancer in a completely different spot. They progress on to diabetes, end-stage kidney disease. I mean, it just progresses because nothing changes with the mind so that their health gets better.
Yeah. And you say the mind, and I am all into the body, but the as you're talking, what I'm thinking about is the autonomic nervous system and it being activated, the fight or flight sympathetic response, the fight or flight being activated, and how science is showing us now that individuals who remain in an activated state for long periods of time began to suffer things like you said, diabetes. They began to suffer, and Dr. Gabor Mate is really bringing this out, things like cancer, things like Alzheimer's. And we have to come to a place of saying we've got to change. And you say mindset, I say mindset, and our intellectual mindset as well as our physiological mindset, right? Because this body has its own brain as well, and it's sending information. So it is imperative. I so agree that we have to start, I like to say, at the root of the problem, because like you said, the condition is just a symptom. The condition is just a message saying something is not working right. And if we don't pause and say, what is this telling me? What's not working right? We get that one condition fixed, and then there's another condition that shows up. So you may have answered this, but I am just wondering, you went to school all these years. You've practiced in this field all these years, and age 55 rolls around and you decide that you want to make a transition into health and life coaching. Share your reasoning for that, if not already done. And if so, let me know.
Yes. So once you get healed, it's hard to continue doing something that required you to be a different person. And what I mean when I say that is, people who go into careers where you deal with death, dying, or like police officers, where you see a lot of, death and dying, you have to be a certain personality to be able to deal with that on a daily basis.
Yes.
And at that time, when I went into that career, I was very closed off. I was very, I wasn't forthcoming with a lot of things, and I didn't connect with patients. It was very easy for me to separate work from home, because I really did not have a lot of empathy for what was going on. It was very science for me. It was very, clinical, if you will. But once I changed, once I became a cancer survivor and I was in the other chair, and my heart started to open towards the people that I was taking care of. They were no longer a disease to me. They were a person. It was very hard to stay in that field. It became harder to go to work every day to see people suffer. And I got to a point when I got healed, I started sharing what I was learning with my patients. And a lot of what I teach is not standard for care. So I had to, start to sneak information to my patients to get them the help that I knew would help them. And it put me in a situation where I felt like, I'm an employed physician, but yet I am being stifled by mainstream medicine about what I can really say and teach. Because now that I have a, group of survivors who have been with me for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, some of them, they trust me. They've seen me change. They've seen my metamorphosis happen, and they want to know what I'm doing. So it's really hard to really, and now I realize based on my health and what it's done for the patients who have taken my advice, who have had, miraculous changes in their health and their life, to not, start to do this full time, because I realize that sometimes things are for a season. Mm-hmm. You gotta exit some things so that you can enter into the new season.
Yeah.
And I realized that for me, what I used to do, that's an old season for me. Yeah. And now I've gotten so much more information that I can share to help people who've come through that not go back through that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not sharing that information is almost a disservice. Yeah. It's
I had to tell them, I was like, I have this for you, but you can't tell nobody I gave it to you.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just trying to think back, because we've known each other a long time, and I know when this started. What I do know is when I went back for my master's, I was very intentional on not going into a program for a therapist. Like, I wanted the psychology piece. I did not want to be a therapist because of the very thing that you're saying. Like, I did not want to have a system tell me what I could do and what I could not do. And I know a therapist, and she says that she struggles with that all the time. And that question always comes up, like, you're not a therapist, but you're practicing therapy. I'm like, no, I'm not practicing therapy. I'm practicing coaching with information that's out in the world that really makes a difference in people's lives. And it's unfortunate when a system, gets in the way and says that you can only do this much. So I want to commend you for saying, no, I want to take care of people. I want people to recover, and I want people to heal, and I want people to live a long time. I want people to bounce back better.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Because it is wonderful when patients come back and they say, I did what you told me. I'm off my insulin, I've lost weight, my eye pressure's down from my glaucoma, my primary care doctor wants to know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And I know that another piece of this in terms of health is that you had lost a significant amount of weight at one time. And what I can't remember right now is what period of life were you in? But how did that add value to the person that you are today and what you were experiencing at that time?
So I guess it's about 2 years after I finished my breast cancer treatment, I had just my weight gotten to a point where I was at my heaviest point that I had ever been. Yeah, I was heavier than 9 months pregnant, full term with twins. And now that I think back on it, I was miserable at that point in my life. I had I was self-employed when I had my breast cancer. I had some significant financial challenges because of the fact that I couldn't work full time. My marriage was a mess at the time. I didn't have any support. I had small children. My parents had just moved in with me right before I was diagnosed. And, they were with me through treatment. But right after I finished treatment, my mother passed from kidney disease. And then my father was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And then all of a sudden I became a caregiver to my dad along with the kids. And then here comes COVID. So I lost weight right around 2019. I lost 60 pounds and everything got better. My blood pressure got better. My depression got better. My anxiety got better. My blood sugar got better. Like, I had totally transformed my health. I was a new person. Mm-hmm. But those series of stressors happening back to back to back to back, basically, I gained about half the weight back. Mm-hmm. And I realized now, looking back, because we don't understand at the time, it was my spiritual reconnection that actually got me back on track. I had the health piece. I knew what to do there, but I hadn't gotten to a point where I was able to manage the stressors in a way that it didn't adversely affect my nervous system to a point where it was causing my weight to go back up. So that's why I'm excited now to really, deliver a coaching program to survivors that not only has the health piece in it, but it shows you how to manage your stressors so that you don't have that autonomic nervous system on.
Activated all the time.
Running away, causing problems.
Yeah, and that's interesting because oftentimes when people think about weight, they think that it's all about the food you're putting in your mouth. And that is just so not the case. I was reading an article the other day in Oprah's online publication that was saying, I guess now there is conversations about weight not really impacting health the way the medical field says it does, and that it is coming from something different. Mm-hmm. And, there are people who may be overweight, but still very healthy. And so I think to your point and what you're saying, when you lost the weight, your focus shifted from all of the stress to self. The first time it was now, how am I eating? But it released the stress and began to focus on self again. The second time, well, we know it's spirituality, which I think the first was too, but in a different frame. The second time it was aware. I'm now looking at what's going on spiritually, and again, focusing on self, right? And I think there is something to be said about when we shift the focus and you begin to look at self again and put energies back into self, we can release some of the pressure of all the stressors that are in life, even though they're still there. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, because life is going to keep on lifing. So not going away.
And I articulated that clearly. But when we look at and we get excited or down about weight, that too is a message. What else is going on? Mm-hmm. And it may not be an illness coming on, but there are stressors, and that nervous system is activated, especially when you can't lose weight. You got to continually ask, what is going on? Like, it's not about the food. It's not about working out, but this weight is holding on. What's holding on? Mm-hmm. I don't know where that tangent came from. Somebody needed to hear that. So when you decided that you wanted to look at things from a spiritual standpoint, talk to me about that journey a little bit, because I know that you did some things, and I know that you have credentials, I'll say, to even work with people in that space.
For me, I just realized now when I had my stroke, before the stroke, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure in my 20s. Mm-hmm. And when we in our 20s, we don't even listen to the doctor. It's like, okay, yeah, right. Mm-hmm. So I had a stroke when I was in my 30s, breast cancer in my 40s. And it wasn't until 2020 during COVID, after I lost my dad, that I really reconnected with Christ. And I realized how much grace I was given through all of that.
Yeah.
And let me stop because I'm over. I was gonna be crying.
Hey, it is what it is, right? That's our truth.
My heart is speaking.
Not.
And when I really became intentional about, because I grew up in the church, I grew up, we went to church every Sunday, and I realized that it was just religion, it was routine, that I never really had a relationship with Christ. Mm-hmm. And once I actually realized the difference and really started to develop that relationship and read the word for myself, because a lot of times we don't read it for ourselves. We just listen to what the pastor says on Sunday. We take it as truth and we keep it moving, right or wrong. But they really made a difference when I started reading for myself and reading what the word says and who he says we are. And that was huge, because I had a lot of self-confidence issues, a lot of issues with my boundaries and letting people take advantage and not, making people treat me a certain way. Mm-hmm. So that made a huge difference in my life. And knowing that all of that is in the word, is huge. And, I've learned over these past 3 years now that I've really been intently studying, that everything we need in life is in there. And if we just read it and uncover it, and we start to talk to God and ask for things, he actually really does answer. Because I was shocked when I started talking, I got answers like immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think people just really underestimate the availability that we have to have that relationship.
Yeah. I know my brand, Sensational Living, I always tell people and explain sensational based on the scripture that says, I came that you may have life and you may have life more abundantly. And to me, that is sensational living. And it's always a reminder when I say sensational living. God says we can have abundance. We can have abundance, and not just an abundance from a financial standpoint. I don't think that it stops at finances. I think when he talks about abundance, he's talking about abundance in all areas of our lives, in our health, in our finances, in our relationships, like in our relationship with, in your mind, in your physical space, it's just all of, and it's available. We just have to go and get it.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing about God, is he lets us choose. He's
Yes.
there. He's not going to force himself on us. He lets us choose. But sometimes we have to be reminded that the choice is there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because life can give us some stuff, right? And we forget. If you've got one challenge after another, and at some point you've disconnected, that relationship is not as fused as it could be. I won't even say should, as it could be, then it's almost like the buffer is not there. And so all of these things are just piling on top of us, on top of us. And you feel like this is it. Like you forget that promise has been made to you. Yeah, it's really about being intentional. I'm just thinking about the times in my life when I too grew up in church and it was more of religion. And even though I established a relationship with Christ early in life, there has been times where I've waxed and waned, right? I'm really close at some point, and other times I'm not. And I think I love it because, at least for me, when I'm not, that stuff starts piling up and I know where to run back to. Like, wait, I'm sorry. I forgot.
I think that's his way of getting us back in. It's like, okay, she done gone too far. Let me let something happen.
But so in knowing this and working with your clients, I pause because I'm trying to figure out how I want to ask that question. But are you working specifically with Christians, non-Christians, or what's ideal for you?
I think based on the people who would be drawn to me would most likely be Christians. I don't feel like someone who wasn't already at least spiritual would even, hire me as their coach. Just because I am so forward with it, in my conversation, in my social media, you're not going to not know. Because I am about building the kingdom, and I want healthy Christians in the kingdom, people who have a healthy mindset, whose character is growing to be somewhat like and as close to godly character as possible. Because that is, our mission is to make disciples ultimately. So, we have to be disciples. We have to act accordingly. And, I don't see, based on, what I put in the atmosphere, me drawing someone who is not a Christian. Now, I may have someone who just doesn't know Jesus who, comes in and, and that's a piece I hadn't figured out yet. If I do get someone who doesn't know Jesus, how to to get them in the right place so that they can learn more. And so that is something to think about. I have to figure that piece out.
Our walk is our first talk. Our walk is our first talk. I am thinking about those who are listening and wanting you to share some tips. Maybe somebody's out there and they're wondering, I don't have cancer. I have never had cancer. Is there anything I can do to help evade cancer? So do you have any tips or anything that you may recommend for individuals to really pay attention to that
Yes, definitely. And it is interesting that you say that. Everyone has cancer cells in their body. Every single person, no matter how healthy you are. And the difference between those who actually manifest a clinically diagnosed cancer versus those who don't is the environment that's in their body. Like if we thought about cancer as a seed and your body being the soil, it's what kind of soil is that seed in? You know, if you have the right soil, it's going to grow. You're going to get a whole bunch of weeds as cancer. Mm-hmm. But if you have the right soil to kill cancer, then nothing will grow. So the things that fertilize
that analogy,
the cancer seed are things like sugar, excess sugar, because cancer cells are abnormal in a way where they metabolize sugar 50 times faster than a normal cell. So when you have a diet that includes a lot of excess sugar, you're actually feeding any cancer cells that may be there. So if you can minimize, or if you can eliminate the sugar in your diet, that is huge, because that will significantly decrease your risk by about 30%. Another thing that you can do is you can keep your stress level down. If you can keep your stress under control, because that stress hormone actually elevates your blood sugar. And that blood sugar elevation causes a cascade of things that happen, inflammation, which can actually activate cancer. So if you can keep your stress levels down and cope with your stress, that's another way that it can decrease your risk.
Good. Thank you. I'm over here writing notes like this. This is a whole nother program. We got 3 S's. Come with your third one.
So the third one's not an S. It's
no.
With sugar, stress.
That later.
Fasting. So fasting is the other way. Mm-hmm. Fasting, the way fasting works in a couple different ways, but the biggest way is it actually is a detoxifier. It's a natural detoxifier, because cells that turn into cancer are cells that are typically weak, they're injured, they're old, and they need to be removed from the body, from the circulation. And fasting is a way that will remove those unhealthy cells out of the circulation before they become mutated and become cancerous. If you can combine all 3 of those things together, that's kind of going to really be the biggest way that you can significantly reduce your risk.
Now with fasting, there's a whole lot of conversation around fasting right now. When you speak of fasting, is there a certain period of time, number of hours that you would recommend as, say, a minimal? I could fast for 8 hours, but that might not be it. I could fast for 2 hours, right? So
but you want all. So when you say fasting is a voluntary abstinence from food. And for it to be clinically effective, you want to fast for at least minimum 18 to 24 hours. Okay. So if you can say just eat once a day, once a week, that's a fast. Mm-hmm. All types of fasting, whether it's intermittent fasting, extended fasting, have some benefit. So even if you're able to fast for 18 hours, that gives you some benefit. There have been studies showing that you do get benefit from that. Now, personally, I feel like you need to do an extended fast to really kind of clear things out. You know, if you can do 48 to 36 hours, you know, at least once a month, I think that's ideal. If you can do 7 days, once a quarter, you know, that would be better. But there is a study out there where if you just do a 7-day fast once a year, you do get benefit from that. Mm-hmm. But I think any level of fasting gives you some benefit.
Okay. Now, how does one fast for 48 hours? What's going in the body? Water only.
Water. I mean, and it varies. You know, it's okay to drink if you don't want to drink things with caffeine. So green tea is fine. Water is fine. Water with a slice of lemon in it. You can even, some people do like decaffeinated coffee. So you just want to try to avoid caffeine. You don't want the stimulants.
Okay. I was just sure that it wasn't me who was wondering. It wasn't just I. So thank you for that. There's so much information out here, and it's good to hear it from someone who has the credentials and extensive study um, in terms of what should really be done and the effects of it. So we're coming to a wrap. And I just want to ask another question. I won't say final because I might hear something and feel like I need to know more. But if there was one piece of advice that you would want to give to a cancer survivor, what would it be?
Well, definitely those three things we just talked about, they apply to cancer survivors as well. So you definitely want to do that. And I would say that you as a cancer survivor, you want to make sure that you are proactive in doing things to take care of your health. You can't just sit back and listen to what mainstream medicine is telling you, because I know firsthand that a lot of it is incorrect. Medicine is just man's attempt to understand God's miracles. They're still experimenting. And when it comes to cancer, they're still really very far behind the way cancer actually behaves, because all of the medications for cancer and even the information that's out there doesn't speak to the real way that cancer grows and spreads. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. So, I would say definitely be proactive with your health. Don't just sit back and just wait on, because I did that for a couple of years. And, I was self-employed when I had cancer. I took a job, an employed position, because I was scared that if my cancer came back, I needed to have a guaranteed paycheck and some insurance. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't have the information that I have now to be able to proactively take care of my health and be and have a sense of peace that my cancer wasn't going to come back.
Yeah.
So you really have to be proactive about that.
I think there's something about listening to your body as well. One of the things that I really appreciate with my dad as he's going through this process is they're trying him on all types of medications. And as you were talking, I love that statement. Medicine is man's attempt to understand God's miracle. But, we often hear medical practice, and we hear whether it's just they're practicing medicine, right? So I think you can always only practice, because not one body is the same.
Right.
So what works for you may have worked wonderfully, but may not work for me, because my body is not your body. But in listening to the body, what my dad does, they try this medication and it's like, yeah, I feel fine. Long as he feels good, he'll take the medication. They tried him on something. He was like, oh no, this has me sick and I can't get up. And he says, no, take me off of that. I'm not taking it anymore. Now, what's interesting about all of this, the cancer is not doing anything. Like, it's not decreasing. It's not the cells. They're not decreasing or increasing. And, I'm always curious. And I'm like, well, what if that's normal for his body? Mm-hmm. We don't know.
No.
But what he does know is when they're putting things in the body that's making it feel bad, that he doesn't want that. Mm-hmm. And he's been able to, I think this is the 3rd year, he's never been down. Never, he did radiation, I think, once, and he was like, never again, because that had him down. And he had some medication that had, but just in terms of anything long-term, and like we hear with people just no energy and losing all their weight and everything. He's never had any of that. So I think there's something that's very important about listening to our own bodies. And like you're saying, being proactive, having those conversations with your doctor. This one isn't working for me. And in addition to proactive, advocating, proactive, talking to multiple doctors, but also advocating for yourself, and that, no, I don't like this one.
And if you don't like your doctor, like
you
can choose. You can certainly interview someone else and move on, because I've talked to so many people who just did not like their physicians.
And you guys have heard it. Some of them are just in science, and all they see, I had never heard that before, is a disease and not the person. So you want to make sure you get to someone that sees the person. I just think it makes the process much easier to go through.
It does. And you know when you go to a physician's office whether you're a disease or they see you. Because most physicians, especially someone who's been practicing a long time, they get very jaded.
Yeah.
It's like they see the disease. They don't see you as a person anymore.
Yeah.
It's a job to them. It's routine.
I think if anyone has been in a job a long time, they can relate to that. I know in my old profession, after 30 years of seeing injury upon injury upon injury, I just did not have a lot of empathy. It was just, what's the next task to get the claim closed, right? So if anyone has been in anything, probably not even just a job, anything, a long period of time, you know that it just starts to become very rote, and the emotions, empathetic, compassionate, those emotions of that nature kind of just go out the door, and it's just, we're doing one more thing, checking one more box, filling one more task. So we have come to our time. And what I really want you to do, I know that you have a program coming up that you're launching that I think everybody needs to know about. And I also want you to tell people how to get in touch with you. So tell us about your program, and then tell us how people can get in touch with you.
Well, I am having a free workshop. It is called The Journey to Wholeness, Faith, Food, and Wellness for Cancer Survivors. You can go and find out information about the workshop on my website. It's www.drtonyamd.com. And then I can be found everywhere on all social media at Dr. Tonya MD.
And did I hear the dates? I'm sorry, or not hear the dates?
You did not hear the dates, because I'm not sure when this will be airing. So,
okay.
So you can go to the website. Yeah, just go to the website. And actually, I'm going to do the workshop multiple times. So you can go to the website, go to in all of my social media, and register for the workshop. It's a 90-minute workshop. It's completely free. You will leave the workshop with a wealth of information about how to start on your journey to wholeness with your health, with your mind, and with your spirit. So I'm excited. I'm really excited that I get to do this work now.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, if I'm not a cancer survivor, could I still benefit from the information?
Yes, you will definitely benefit from the information. I think the benefit is applicable to really anyone. There is a lot of information. You will learn a lot about cancer sitting through the workshop, but definitely all of the information that is shared will benefit anyone, not just cancer survivors.
Yeah. And maybe it's just me, But I just feel like who would not need to know about cancer? I don't know.
It's very common. Over half of the U.S. population is affected. So it
Yes.
is very common. And
Yeah.
actually the rates are going up. Oddly enough, when you think about the advances in medicine, it's shocking that you still see as much cancer as you do. I have noticed over the almost 30 years now that I've been practicing, people who come in with cancer diagnosis are getting younger and younger.
Yeah.
When I first started, they were, my average patient was in their 60s, 50s, 60s. Now it is not uncommon to see new cancer diagnoses in people who are in their 30s, even 20s. So, things are really changing. So yes, anybody could benefit from this.
Yeah, and that just makes me wonder if they're climbing up the wrong wall. So anybody can benefit with the rates going up. We just don't know. And I think for me, my belief is that the more information we have, the more we can prepare ourselves and help to avoid some of these things. So for everyone, go to drtonyamd.com to sign up for the upcoming 90-minute workshop. And you can find Dr. Tonya across all social media platforms at Dr. Tonya MD. So this has been a pleasure. I so appreciate you. And what I didn't say at the beginning is it is October, which is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I am just so honored to have you as the first guest for the month of October and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and to have this conversation. So I thank you for your yes and for your knowledge and your sharing.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this. This was a wonderful conversation.
Yeah. So when I close, I typically just do a little brief prayer for those who are listening. And my prayer is that you will take control of your health. I pray that you will make choices that will benefit you, healthy choices that will benefit you and allow you to live in the abundance that you have been promised. And if you've experienced any adverse health conditions, are experiencing adverse health conditions, that you've heard something in today's message that will allow you to further advocate for yourself, to further be proactive in getting what it is that you need so that you can find yourself on the other side and know what it means to bounce back better. And as I close, I just want to remind you that in this life, we get to choose. So choose to listen from the place where your heart speaks and choose to live a sensational life. Peace and blessings.
Thank you for listening to Where Her Heart Speaks with Coach Catherine, where Catherine aims to challenge and disrupt ineffective thoughts and behaviors to help you not only embody peace, joy, calm, and certainty, but also help you live the life you've always dreamed of living. Follow Catherine on Facebook and Instagram at I Am Catherine James, and visit www.catherinejames.com. Remember, to live the life of your dreams, you must go within and return to the place where your heart speaks.